Hello, friends.
Hi.
It's Caitlin and Shanika with Get Checkered, and Get Checkered is part of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown and community supported. We actually have someone new joining us today. So everyone, meet Courtney.
Hello. My name is Courtney. I am coming from Toronto. So we now have 3 different time zones for this episode.
Yeah.
Yep, we're ranging from 11 in the morning to 4 o'clock for Courtney right now.
Yeah, exactly. You can say we're committed because Caitlin's supposed to be on vacation right now, and she's bopped on, basically spent the entire day watching the race because it's been, I think, fully like a nightmare, like a great thing to watch, but also a nightmare. I think I can.
Stressful, tiring, confusing.
Yeah, anxiety inducing something.
Yes.
Before we jump into just what the hell happened in Saudi, we're going to talk through some just weekly updates. Some pretty big things happened throughout the week leading up to the race. Then, of course, talk about the track itself. Don't worry, we'll make sure to breeze through that. And then qualifying and the very messy race day that we just saw. So, oh my gosh. What was one of the biggest headlines this week? I know what
probably safe to say the biggest event was Frank Williams did pass away this week.
Right.
So that was all over. Like it was the teams, the drivers, team principals. Everyone was paying respects to Frank. So
Yeah, a lot of drivers and cars had stickers, like Frank Williams stickers on their helmets or their cars. And I think that was the original logo he went into Formula One with, so has some major history attached to it.
cool.
Yeah, I think it's just so sad to see someone so prolific in the sport pass away. But he's left quite the legacy. So from the team alone, but also just everything he brought, it's sad, but I'm glad that the teams got to celebrate who he was through the last week. I don't know if you what sports broadcasting did you watch? Caitlin, I know you watch F1 TV. I watch TSN. Courtney, did you watch?
Yeah, mine's through TSN, but we also have access to Sky Sports through like my dad's channel of something.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because when I was watching the pre-race stuff this morning, they did quite a lengthy segment on Frank Williams. So I'm sure that'll be up somewhere if anyone needs to catch it. If I can find it before this episode's up, I'll make sure to put it in the description so you can watch it yourself. But I thought it did a really good job in commemorating him.
Agreed.
Courtney, do you want to take the next headline? So for those who don't know, her favorite driver Lando Norris, and she made a little bit of a change this week too.
Yes, I think I have to start packing my bags. Lando posted on social media earlier this week saying that he is now moving to Monaco, the hub of Formula One drivers. So little baby Lando's getting that tax break. Good for him. I mean, do what you want to do. I think do you guys know who his like friend Max Futrell is?
He sometimes on his YouTube channel.
Yeah, so he's also a driver, but he's not like with anyone in F1 right now, but he won like a Renault F2, I want to say, championships, and then took some time off due to mental health, but I think he's getting back into racing next year. But he currently lives with Lando in London or in the UK. So there's lots of sparks saying, what's poor Max going to do if Lando moves to Monaco?
Does he couch serve on Lando's apartment?
Well, yeah, maybe.
I mean, right, free place in Monaco.
Like, what do you do? Or maybe Lando keeps the house in the UK and just has his friends pay him rent or something.
Yeah, I'm sure he will.
Right? Yeah, I was just watching a YouTube video where he was like, I actually enjoy having Max as my roommate. And I was like, wow, okay.
Look at that. And his family's in the UK and his brother just had a baby. So I'm sure he's going to keep that place and like go back for like holidays and just spend a lot of time there when he can.
100%. But like Courtney said, and I think Caitlin, we talked about in one of our early episodes, just Monaco is the place to be because we love a good tax haven when you're making.
Yeah, and it's like,
$1 billion.
it's literally on the Mediterranean coast. What's wrong with Monaco? If you have the money to be there.
Oh my gosh, we believe in people also paying their taxes, but
It's a good thing to do, yes.
Yes.
But if this is what it's structured like might as well take advantage of it while you can. I think he did say something similar to that. He's like, I'm just looking to like my future. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like,
Yeah, I also read somewhere that he was like, this is like a great financial situation. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
is it?
That's one way to put it.
Yeah.
oh my gosh. Caitlin, do you want to take the next headline? I was upset about this one, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and like fair. I was a little bit confused when the statement first came out. This came from the Mercedes AMG F1 team, and they posted on their story and Instagram post like this statement from Toto saying like, I apologize to the victims and anyone hurting from the Grenfell Tower in London. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Like what does this have to do with F1 at all? And I don't want to be insensitive, so I looked it up. So it turns out this has to do, and I'm from Canada, so are you guys, but like maybe I'm just incompetent. I did not really remember this, to be honest.
Yeah.
There was a fire back in 2017 in West London. The Grenfell Tower, 72 people died and 74 more were injured. And straight from Wikipedia, they're saying the fire was started by a malfunctioning fridge freezer on the 4th floor, spread rapidly up the building's exterior, bringing fire and smoke to all the residential floors. This was due to the building's cladding and external insulation and the air gap between which enabled the stack effect. The fire burned for about 60 hours before finally being extinguished. Now, so that's important because Kingspan K15 insulation is one of the products used on the Grenfell Tower, although majority is made by another company. And that all ties into Mercedes because Mercedes just announced a partnership with Kingspan this week as well. Hence why this whole thing has come out. Kingspan came out with a statement and said they played no role in the design of the cladding system on Grenfell, where its K15 product constituted approximately 5% of the insulation and was used as a substitute product without Kingspan's knowledge in a system that was not compliant with the building's regulation. Okay, I just find it's kind of odd in my opinion with that. Like they're saying it was used without their knowledge, and I'm like, if you make a product, you don't always know where it's being used. I don't know. I just thought it was a weird way to kind of say it.
Word things, hey.
Yeah. The British, so after this announcement between Mercedes and Kingspan was released, the British Community Secretary Michael Gove noted, quote unquote, the achievements of Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton represent a British success story of which we are all proud. I hope you will reconsider the commercial partnership which threatens to undermine all the good work the company has done. And hence comes out Toto's letter. So Toto responds, he says, on behalf of our team, I would sincerely like to apologize to you for the additional hurt that this announcement has caused. It was never our intention to do so.
I think it's important to mention that Lewis was actually asked this during the press conferences, which I thought was interesting. I don't know who the journalist was. This is why we need to be the journalist, because I was like, this is a ridiculous question to ask him. But the guy was basically like, what do you feel about you specifically taking sponsorship from a company that did something so horrible? But at the same time, it's Mercedes that's signing the contract. That when Lewis was asked that, he literally didn't even answer. He was like, well, what kind of question is that? I think something to note is that the community that the Grenfell Tower is in, and the people that lived in them are vulnerable populations. So they don't have a ton of money. There's many of them are disabled. So unfortunately, even though it's been 4 years after the fact, like coming up on 4 years, a lot of them still haven't landed on their feet. So I'm really surprised Mercedes, they're probably working out something in the back end, but Toto didn't say that he was going to cut ties with them or anything. It was like, we didn't want to hurt.
He's going to, like, he's said he's willing to meet with this Grenfell United to represent the victims. I think some of the victims are in that community, so he'll meet with them. Yeah, but he didn't say he's going to sever ties with them.
I don't know about that.
It's money, Shanika, right? Like they're getting lots of money from Kingspan, so I don't know. Capitalism.
I know it's not a good look though.
It's not, no, I'm not disagreeing on that. But yeah, that's that story, because I just didn't understand why all this was coming out. So,
so Courtney, any ideas? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a very kind of like messy situation. Yeah, I don't know. It's, you want to do the right thing for these like vulnerable populations, but then again, like F1 is such a money driven sport. Like I don't see them cutting ties, just given the fact they probably got a huge financial benefit from it. But I think Toto agreeing to meet is like a step in the right direction, but I think it's just a messy situation overall.
Yeah, I think that my PR brain immediately is like, you should cut ties with this company. And generally speaking, most businesses have like some sort of morality clause nowadays, because I'll say it, it's because the influencers are always doing wild things out there. So brands need to be able to pull those deals right away. So let's hope and see if something else can be worked out. At the end of the day, yes, Mercedes matters in this conversation and Kingspan, but the biggest focus needs to be on like whatever helps the victims get back on their feet, and get the support that they need. So,
and maybe that's what Mercedes does, right? Maybe that's their agreement they come to, which we won't know for a while, but
yeah, and I think that's an opportunity for sure for them.
Yep, that's that. Nope. Next one. I don't know who wants to take this one. Do you guys see the notes on this? I put it down. Sebastian Vettel hosted a woman-only karting race in Saudi Arabia.
Love this.
Yeah, so Sad just coming through again is like our fave. But what I found interesting is like what he said he got out of it, really. And we know that like there's been a lot of like activism by some of these drivers lately, especially coming to the Middle Eastern races. And what Seb said with this race is, quote unquote, difficult for us coming to a country where we only spend a couple of days and we try to be a perfect judge. It's true. And like there's the three of us like judging as we're in Canada, Hawaii, just
it's true.
Very isolated from what's actually happening out there. And then Sebastian went on to continue and say, this way, I think it was important for me to get to know these women. I was inspired by their stories and their background and the positivity about the change in the country. So some of the women in this race, like it was a range of experiences, I guess. Some of them had been racing, and I guess some had never even driven a car before or something. Women in Saudi Arabia have only been allowed to drive since 2018.
Yeah. Kind of adding to that, I think it was so great actually to see all the photos come out from it. Did everyone see them? I don't know. Yeah, it was just so good to see Sebastian Vettel in whatever time he has left in Formula One, just doing what he can to create community.
Yep. And the fact that he's acknowledging that like he has stuff to learn and like take a step back and like let someone else tell you their story rather than like putting words in their mouth for them. I think that's a good thing too. So
yeah, I loved this initiative.
Yeah,
I think bringing women into anything is so empowering, and giving them this like platform to speak their voice. And I mean, his platform alone is huge. So I think, good for Seb, always coming through.
Right?
We love him. Tied to it's true, we do. Kind of tied to what Sebastian Vettel did is more just on the human rights record. So Lewis came out and said he was not comfortable racing in the country, given the country's human rights records. We've talked about this a ton actually leading up to the race. Lewis today was wearing a Pride helmet. Actually, several of the drivers were donned in some sort of Pride gear. Because homosexuality is illegal in the country. So anyone that identifies as LGBTQIA plus is not protected. And I think it's one of those things. It's incredibly frustrating.
And then I know people came after Lewis after that, and they're like, so why are you racing here? He's like, this is my job. I'm in Formula One.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's one of the hardest things. Like, what do you do truly?
Right. I don't know. He is using his platform and his voice to say the important stuff. But at the end of the day, like, it's his passion and his job.
Mhm.
And it's the second last race. Does he just not race here, completely concede a world championship? Like,
Mhm. Yeah, I think he's doing like everything he can within like his scope, his range. And then, yeah, this is his job. I don't think he's just going to step away.
Yeah, and I
Right?
really hope it's more of the drivers start. We know Sebastian Vettel feels more and more comfortable saying like, fuck this. I think more of the drivers, as much as they're wearing pride gear today, it would have been good to hear them say more things about it. Unless you're Daniel Ricciardo, who did you guys see that Twitter? It was a clip from some interview, but I sent Caitlin the link to the tweet.
It was pretty cringy.
It was so cringy. He was basically asked about his whole stance on all of this, and he said that he doesn't watch the news because it's really negative and he doesn't know enough and things like that, which I think it's fine, but it's also like, you're one of the most privileged people in the entire world, and then you're saying like, I don't want to know about any of this. It was extremely awkward and cringy to watch. So Lewis Hamilton on one end, Daniel Ricciardo on the other.
I think so. What did I say to that? Because I'm like, I'm not actually surprised. I'm getting vibes from Danny Rick. Okay. I'm starting to get vibes where it's just like, he is being he's sheltering himself off from these issues, and he can because he's a rich ass Formula One driver. And so I don't know. It was not a good look, Danny Rick.
No. Like, even if he had one comment to like support it, he was like the We Races One platform.
Yeah.
Comment on that. And I think like at least you're taking the safe way out, but
yeah,
you're not gonna, oh, I don't watch it because it's negative. This is human rights we're talking about, Daniel.
Right?
Yeah.
So case in point on that, like, so just like, what is going on, Daniel Ricciardo? And I was talking to a friend of ours, Caitlin, Adam, and he he was like, Shan, he dressed up like a full Texan when he came to the States. Like, are we sure that he believes the things that we believe? And I'm like, not to say people in Texas don't, but I understood what he was saying. So Caitlin, your vibes that you're feeling, other people are feeling them too.
Well, it's the audacity that this man can go around with a ring that says less F, right? Yeah. And think like he can get away with anything.
Yeah. Oh, Daniel.
So ridiculous. But I also, something from Daniel Ricciardo's world is that Cyril did get the tattoo. He did get the tattoo. So I'll make sure to put the link to the video in the description so you can go check it out yourself. It was kind of nice to see them both on screen at the same time.
What is it? Is it a badger?
I don't really know what
it's abstract.
I think it's the top of the Renault logo because it's like a diamond.
Yeah.
I think it's the top half and it's like an abstract honey badger. That's what I think.
Gotcha. It could be.
Yeah, I think Courtney's right. So I just thought, and I was like, I don't know what that is, but I think Daniel just branded Cyril in like a really weird way.
Oh my God, yeah. I never think of it like that.
I get the Renault logo because that's where he spent so much time, but like to throw a honey badger in there, I'm like, I don't know about that. That's a bit much. Caitlin, do you want to take us through the track facts? Also, I guess we should note that this freaking track kind of came like to the 11th hour to finish, right? Like, I feel like they were probably just painting things as the airplanes were landing or something in town.
Yeah, it was because after the Qatar race we were saying like, is it going to get done in time? Is there going to be a lot of people working 24 hours to get it done, likely at a minimum wage? Yes, but we have not heard this is speculation to everyone. But so our thoughts, it was done in time though. Solid race. Okay, so quick track facts, everything from our blessed Wikipedia and racefans.net. So this was called your Jeddah Corniche Circuit. It's in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. So on the west side of the country along the Red Sea. So Jeddah is actually the country's second largest city after the capital Riyadh, and its commercial center. There's 4.7 million people here. And right, it is the principal gateway to Mecca, the holiest city in Islam, which is about 40 miles to the east. Kind of like the Doha, Qatar. This is a beta world city. Actually looked it up this time. That means cities that link moderate economic regions to the world economy.
Okay.
Vancouver is a beta plus city. Calgary is a beta negative. And Courtney, I'm pretty sure Toronto's an alpha city somewhere.
Nice to know we're all very sad.
So this will be the 5th night race for F1, following Singapore, Bahrain, Shakir, and Qatar. This is the fastest street track. So it's the second fastest track behind Spa. There'll be a full throttle about 79% of the time. That's pretty substantial. There's 27 turns on it, 3 DRS zones. It's about 6-ish kilometers long. So the longest street circuit, which is longer than Baku, I guess. And drivers, I guess, tend to love like the speed here. They think it's a really fun track, but they say it's very technical, very mentally exhausting. It looks very tight, like the walls are pretty close. There's not a lot of room for error. Lots of blind corners. They say it can be kind of scary, but it's fun. Some tire talk quickly is Pirelli suggested the medium range of slicks, so C2, C3, C4, and their infographic states medium for the lateral, the tire stress, asphalt grip, and then actually a low to medium for traction, braking, asphalt abrasion, and downforce. So I was actually reading that being like, oh, so they can probably do like this sauce in mediums, but turned out to be a very much like mediums and hards race.
Yeah,
it's what everyone was on. And it was expected for only 1 pit stop for all the teams. So just because we are Get Checkered, we're going to have a little bit of controversy and human rights talk in Saudi Arabia. So some of the controversy around this race is activists have been accusing the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia of sports washing with this event.
No, I have no idea what this term is. So
me neither. Looked it up. Sports washing is when a corrupt or autocratic regime invests in sports events to whitewash their international reputation.
Oh, okay. So basically to convince all of us that they're the good people, even though.
And like put on a good show around this sporting event so we see the good stuff.
Yeah.
So in the background, though, there are severe human rights issues in Saudi Arabia. There is criticism from Amnesty International and the Human Rights Watch ahead of this race. The F1 response was that, quote unquote, we made our position on human rights and other issues clear to all partners and host countries who commit to respect human rights in the way their events are hosted and delivered. And also that they worked hard to be a positive force everywhere at races, including economic, social, and cultural benefits. What do you think about that? I want to highlight the fact that they say in the way their events are hosted and delivered.
Oh God. Yeah, I think that's just brilliant messaging and PR, right, Courtney? It's like how the best way to get around it is just to use the right words.
Exactly. They're just like basically putting a band-aid over every human right violation the Kingdom has and being like, but F1's a huge sport. Like, look at how fun our event was. Look at how insane our track is.
Mm-hmm. So. And there was no human rights violations happening at the race. So like there is none, right?
Yeah.
That's a lie.
No, it's fair. Like everything looked to go off pretty well without a hitch at this event from what we saw, just on TV. But again, the race is not the whole country. It's a very isolated time and place. Like that does not solve human rights issues at all.
And kind of going back on the fact, Caitlin, that you said how many people are working 24 hours to get this track done at minimum wage or less.
And that has been an issue at other tracks, right? Where, and in other sports, that stadiums and things have been finished with complete disregard for labor rights or even fair pay. And in some cases, Caitlin, I forget what track it was that we were looking at, but they were essentially holding like migrant workers' passports hostage until they finished the stadium and or track in time. Like it is a consistent thing. And we have to say it's not just the Middle East. There are other countries throughout the season that have very gross human rights violations.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't stop there though. So there were 45 human rights organizations actually calling on Lewis to boycott this GP. Again, coming back to the whole like pin everything on Lewis and expect him to just walk away from this GP. But I understand also the fact that like if Lewis does something, it sends the biggest message.
Yeah.
So 45 people groups brought this up to Lewis. They brought up that they brought up Saudi Arabia's role in the Yemeni civil war, Saudi Arabia's detention of human rights activists, and a murder of a Washington Post journalist, Jamal Khashoggi.
That was the one that like killed me, because when I was seeing the families pop up on, so the royal family was obviously there at the race today. I kept trying to see if they would show the last names, because it's like quite literally the prince is the reason why this journalist was killed. So, and just, it was horrific. I'm not even gonna get into the details, but it was really horrific, and the international community did nothing. And I was like, is he at the race right now? He probably was, to be honest. So, makes you feel gross.
Yeah, not a good look. Like a sour taste in your mouth for sure.
Yeah, I think we've had that sour taste, this whole week. But yeah, so that's kind of what's going on with the track in the country and the city, and quick overview.
Yeah, and we're gonna be there for 10 more years, so gotta keep bringing this topic up again over and over again until something changes.
Yeah.
Okay,
going to go into a quick ad break.
Hi there, I'm Brendan, a certified home inspector with Rumi. Do you have a problem that needs fixing? Whether it's big or small, inside or outside, let me help you find out what's really going on. You can call me by phone, or we can take a look together over video chat. Visit rumi.ca, that's RUMI.ca, and go to Ask a Home Inspector to book your appointment with me today.
Okay, so going into some of the qualifications, FP1, 2, and 3. So free practices, Charles Leclerc had a pretty scary bump in free practice 2. And I think it was turn 22, which is where in the actual race, Mick Schumacher.
Oh yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I know in post qualifying, Lando kind of got asked, why weren't you going fast enough? And he brought up the same thing. Turn 22, I pulled back a little bit because I know that's where Charles spun out. So didn't want to risk that. And then our favorite driver of the day, I guess, talking about him in every aspect, is Lewis. Had 2 charges investigated by the FIA. One of them for ignoring a double waved yellow flag. Gets by with nothing. I think that it was an accident that the yellow flag went off. And then the other one was his team, Mercedes as a whole, got fined 25,000 pounds, I think it was. The FIA found that it was the team's fault for not telling Hamilton with enough time. Only had 10 seconds before.
Yeah.
So, I mean, poor Lewis, just getting hammered on this weekend.
We should say, so Courtney's looking at our notes right now, that he who shall not be named is the second driver at Haas. We just don't really talk about him on the podcast because of his history with women.
Yeah, his name doesn't belong in our mouth. Just like I guess Max is saying that other people don't belong coming out of his mouth.
Yeah, like
in his post-race interviews. It's a little bit spicy coming from Max.
But yeah, I thought it was, I don't know why, I thought it was a little comical that Lewis got in trouble for impeding a Haas vehicle, because it's always the other way around normally. Like it's always the Haas cars just being in the wrong place at the wrong time all the time.
But I do think it's important to send the message that teams are treated equally.
Oh, 100%. Right? Yeah. But I just was like, oh, this never happens. Okay. And the photos from Charles's accident were like gut wrenching. It was nice to see that he was like hopping out of the car, but the photos that I saw from the angle that it was at, it looked like the car just completely just shattered essentially when he hit the wall. So I was very happy to see that he won.
Same with Mick's car. It did not look so hot in that corner.
No. So these are things that trust us, we're gonna dive into deep into this. In Q1, Valtteri was not having the best time. He had to go into the pits early with all the cars around him going very slowly into a corner just as Max was doing his flying lap. He gets pissed. I saw the radio actually from that. He was not very happy. Sebastian Vettel, I thought this was comical. I think he probably thought that he did a really great job in Q1. And Lance, he ended up in 17th. And then when they told Sebastian Vettel, he was like, what? All over the radio. So Lance Stroll, unfortunately for Aston Martin, I don't know what's going on with them. Maybe we should do a deep dive later, but he ended up in 18th. Alonso in 15th, just makes it through by like his teeth basically. And then both Alphas were the surprise for me to see them in 12th and 13th.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I was very surprised. I thought it was hilarious though when Sebastian Vettel was like, what?
Yeah, like he thought he had a good time.
Like, honey, no, you definitely did it. It was not good.
Awkward. Going into Q2 though, they did have an announcement before that they said it was Bottas's 100th start for Mercedes. And that so he's able to start Q2 because so he had misfiring happen in Q1 and he had to stop early. And they actually brought him back to the garage, but he was able to start Q2, which is good because if it was his 100th start and he didn't make it out of Q1, I'm pretty sure that would have been like a terrible, terrible day. But we also noted here that like Lewis does an early time, and he's on medium tires, but he goes on the radio and he says like there's no grip. He does not have a good time at all, and it's just like, oh, what's happening with Lewis? I mean, as the rest of Q2 went on, he ended up flying, so it's fine. It was just a little bit of an early worry. I noted here, poor Sainz. Sainz is not having a good Q2. He had his time deleted for exceeding track limits. And then a little later on, I said he went a little sideways run over a metal curb. It kicked him up. He was literally airborne. And he hit his rear wing just like a little bit on the barrier. And then he had another slide out on another run. And I was just like, poor boy, did not have a good time. He did not make it out of Q2. Neither did Danny Rick. Not good. Kimi and Alonso, so our mature drivers, did not make it out of Q2. And Russell went out. So everyone else made it to Q3. So both Alpines, both Alpha Tauris. Not bad.
And also Gio. That was a surprise.
Oh, Gio, yes. Gio does make it third.
I freaking love that you called Kimi and Alonso our mature drivers. We could call them like, they're both world champs, right? Ex-world champs.
We could do that too. So however you want to roll the dice, it don't matter.
Oh my gosh. All right, Courtney, what happened in Q3?
Q3, back and forth between the two fighting for the title for 2021, Max and Lewis. Fastest laps, Lewis got fastest lap kind of towards the end, and Max was ready to go, ready to take that from him. Max went a little too hard, and I think it was in one of the final turns, just spun out and bumped onto the wall at the end of turn 27. So he stopped on the track. A lot of the people in the Red Bull garage were not happy, including his slightly terrifying father. Slightly terrifying. Yeah. So yeah, Max's dad was not happy at all, but that brought the Mercedes lockout for the Sunday start of Lewis on pole and Valtteri in P2. So the starting grid for today's race was Lewis, Bottas, Max, Charles, Perez, Gasly, Lando, Tsunoda, Ocon, and Gio. So, I mean, your classic like podium there. Lewis,
Yeah.
Max, and Valtteri.
Yeah,
It was nice to see, it was nice to see Pierre's have had a pretty consistent couple of races.
I was happy to see actually Yuki do so well. So to actually be in the top 10, I was like, this is good for him. This is good for his confidence to get placed quite high. So I thought that was great. I also thought it was good for Gio. You know, he's kind of on his like victory lap or whatever. So for him to actually qualify in P10, insane. Like where was that all season?
Yeah, I think that was like his third time, like even making it into Q3. So good for him.
Yep.
Preparing
it's
for
the
Formula E.
same week we see him. I know, literally, like he did a test run in his Formula E car, I think this week. So
I think so.
Oh my gosh, it's happening. All the changes are coming so sooner than we think. We're going to get into the absolutely insane race day after this ad. With Pod Power, our sponsors are making it possible for us to amplify the voices of Albertans and Alberta podcasters. This episode, Edmonton Community Foundation is helping us give a Pod Power shout out to Book Women. Book Women is a podcast about editing, publishing, writing, and more Indigenous stories. 3 Métis librarians representing nations from across the homeland aim to inspire Indigenous peoples to share their stories in whatever form they may enjoy. Guests include Indigenous storytellers from diverse mediums like podcasting, burlesque, books, comics, social media, films, music, and everything in between. You can listen and find out more at bookwomenpodcast.ca. So, team, if you could describe the race day today, what we spent hours watching, in maybe 3 words, what would you call it?
confusing.
Yeah, like
Mayhem.
Or
Angry.
nail biting.
Yep.
I was just gonna say like a giant, like, what the fuck?
I mean, you could do that too.
So I want to preface everything that happened, and I feel like this should have been the omen, okay, now in retrospect, but as you all know, Formula 2 races at all the same tracks. They're just a little bit earlier on in the day than everyone else. And there was a huge accident in F2 right at the start. So I don't know the guy's last name very well, but Enzo Fittipaldi, who's the, I think, grandson of a very well-known motorsport athlete. And a French driver, again, don't know how to pronounce last name, it starts with a P, I'm so sorry. But the French driver at the start could not start his vehicle. And all the other drivers were able to get around him and continue on racing. I don't know if it was the timing or where Enzo was in the grid that he didn't see what was going on, but the reaction time wasn't there. And Enzo just plowed into the vehicle.
Right at the back, yeah.
Right at the back. And initially there were reports of, okay, both drivers are conscious when we last found out. But at the beginning of the actual race day for Formula One, they announced that Fittipaldi, so Enzo, had to be airlifted from the hospital that they were sent to. So really hoping he's okay, because it looks like with the accident, it was 72 Gs, which is more than Romain Grosjean's accident. So yeah.
What was Romain Grosjean's?
It was like 60, 65 or something like that. Yeah. So super big, super scary, really hoping that everyone's okay. And I tweeted from the Get Checkered account. I was like, okay, just no more accidents today would be good. I shouldn't have put that out there, because that's
Shanika manifested it all. We can blame Shanika for this.
So that's just not what happened at all. So we typically have been trying to not go through every little point that happened. But at today, it just was, there's no way to talk about this race without talking about every single thing that happened, because everything went wrong. So
kind of
Who wants to
I'll
start?
I'll start with the start because it was a good start for Mercedes. Okay,
Yeah.
we had Lewis and Bottas in 1-2, and they did not let Max pass. It ended up very clean into turn 1, turn 2. No touches between all of them. It was great. Lewis comes out in front, then Bottas, and Max. Okay, clean. Now it does not actually stay that way for too much longer. So it's a 50 lap race.
Yeah.
And by lap 10, we had the first safety car. And we alluded to it already. Mick Schumacher went into the barriers. I think probably that lap, turn 22 or so. But it was a big bump. And the car did not look good.
No, and I think with calling the safety car, there was this really awful maybe impression that, oh, you know, yellow flags, everything's going to be fine. They're going to be racing again. But like Caitlin said, since the accident was so aggressive, it actually turned out the barriers were damaged. So it wasn't even the fact that moving Mick's car was the issue. It was like actually repairing the barriers that was the issue. So Mercedes, of course, I think majority of teams, right, like ended up boxing.
It seemed to be a like half and half. Like
Yeah.
half people boxed.
I feel like
yeah.
at least one person from each team boxed.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So because like with the safety car, you can save some time on a pit stop. So that's why like Mercedes got Lewis in, then it went Bottas, and then Leclerc, Perez went in, Lando went in. I don't know what your guys' commentators are saying, but mine were saying like pretty much the mentality of Verstappen must be like do the opposite of what Mercedes is doing.
Yeah, I think I was not surprised to see them box, but I knew that Lando had to go in for sure because he was the only one on softs, right, at the beginning.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to go in. So I knew he was going in, but everyone else, I was like, okay, whatever, let's see what happens. But I did think it was funny because when they were trying to figure out who to pit when, ideally for Mercedes, under a yellow flag, is you stack them, right? Like you have one driver come in and the other one come in. So Valtteri, I mean, opinions, ladies. Do you think he was going a bit too slowly in trying to hold Max up a little bit? Because you also can't pass under any sort of safety car.
Mm-hmm.
So that they could stack it a little bit better. What do you guys think?
I don't disagree.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I think it's like it was very convenient that Valtteri did that. It worked very well for Mercedes, but it could also be looked at that Valtteri just sometimes you walk behind slow people in a hallway and you're like, why are you like this? And they're just like that. Okay.
Yeah, just cruising on by, doing his little like quick turn.
Yes, exactly.
And I want to know if Valtteri was just like, okay, I'm just cruising, and then Max is behind him, just like so angry because he's not driving any faster.
Max was complaining about Valtteri, and then Max on the radio complaining about the safety car, being like, "Can they go any faster?"
Yeah, I think Max also just needs to relax.
Hey, yes,
Take a deep breath.
it's an idea.
I think everyone was very upset today. So of course everyone's thinking, okay, pitting under the yellow flags is great, save some time. Red Bull's thinking we got to gamble, go along with Max. And then Courtney, what happens?
Then we get that red flag. Everyone's in the pits, and Max, can he change his tires during a red flag? I think that's
it's like a free, yeah. And it came up in Lando's post-race interview actually. He's like, this is the dumbest rule. I want to go into the rule book and just like find it and edit it in PDF.
Get it, Lando. Take control.
Right. But yeah, so pretty much like it shot everyone in the foot that changed during the safety car, because everyone else is getting their free pit stop with the red flag.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you all think? Do you think that they should be allowed to change? Because they can change tires. They can also change components of the car that's broken, as long as it's like
for like.
Yeah, like for like, exactly. I don't know.
I feel like a red flag is like doing it during a red flag can kind of be like taking advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then like for Lando, I'm like, do what you need to do, baby. on it. Like, I'm just too biased, but yeah, I don't know how I feel about it.
I think it's like, yeah, it seems like very, I don't know, it's a gamble, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you just like and it becomes lucky if you can do it during a red flag. And so in that regard, if it's lucky, does it just come down to like it's part of the game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too, because you're right. Like this was a total luck play. It could have also not played in Red Bull's favor, right? Like just this time it played in their favor. They did say, I forget what race, was it Monza and or whenever Lewis came back from the back basically and had to unlap himself. I forget when that was, but it played into his hand that day.
Yeah.
So
I think it keeps things interesting.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah, and not predictable, which
Which is it can shuffle things a lot more.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess from the Get Checkered team, you're getting a resounding, okay, it's fine.
Because we're not the Landos that are like devastated after that. So.
Yeah. And then going on with poor Lando, so the restart comes up after the red flag. Miscommunication for Lando. He's in like P16 because he pitted and came out last. He was supposed to start P13, but no one told him. FIA didn't tell them in time. So poor sweet little angel had to start from the back.
It was not a good day for him. Luck was not on his side.
No, and I think this is an indication of just the FIA not having it together this race at all.
Okay, yes, this is the beginnings of, we just see a whole bunch of weird stuff.
Yeah.
With FIA.
Yeah. I will say, like, quickly throwing it in yesterday's post qualifying interviews, I read somewhere that Max was like, I don't know who approved this track. All I know is that they're like $90 million richer because they signed this contract. Like, it's fun, but it's so dangerous. Yeah.
Oh.
Drama. So,
I mean, we learned quickly that they're not wrong because obviously we had the F2 accident. Charles had a really big accident. And then at this point of the race, we've already had Mick Schumacher have quite a big, scary accident at the same turn as Charles.
And the FIA stated, I want to say it was between turn 22 and 27, which 27 is the big hairpin. Drivers would get penalties if they were going too slow because it's dangerous. But also all of those corners were blind corners. So they're hesitant to go around these high-speed corners at high speeds because if someone's crashed, if here like the corner's here and someone crashed right kind of at the apex, how is another driver supposed to see that coming at?
Not seeing it.
Yeah, so
slamming into them over 300 kilometers an hour.
Exactly.
Or maybe just 280, but like still that's significant. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, they were a mess today. So at the restart, Max was in first, Lewis in second. To quote Caitlin here, there is a pushy start.
Yeah, they were pushing each other, like push help.
They were very much like, who can I get off track fastest? Like, who can I move where? But I swear to God, the only person that benefited from this was Esteban Ocon, who just
out of nowhere.
I didn't see him moving at all.
Me neither.
And then all of a sudden he ended up in front of Lewis Hamilton. So out of the turn, we have Max in front, Esteban Ocon, and then Lewis Hamilton, which frankly, I don't think any of us were expecting. So
no. Like Bottas was supposed to be up there, but he had a big lockup.
Yeah.
You're kind of like, Bottas, what are you doing? Yeah. And then some of the commentators in this whole pushy thing, they were actually trying to compare like that to Max's push on Lewis, turn 4 of the Sao Paulo GP, which I think we will all remember for being controversial.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was compared to that. It wasn't as obvious, I would say, but they both were just braking so late and they both just didn't make the turn really.
Yeah.
Nope. And it was great though. I was like, go
It
Esteban!
was exciting, yeah. We're like, okay, how's this going to play out?
Yeah,
And we
like,
don't get to see
I'm
for
okay.
long.
I'm okay with you, like, even winning. If that's what's in your cards today, Esteban, like, you take it home, honey. That's fine.
Right.
I'm fine with it. And as this is all happening though, and I don't know if your viewpoint was similar to mine, so we're watching just them, right? Like the three of these
Yeah,
people.
I did not see what happened in the back until the replays.
Shit was going down in the back. And yeah, did not see any of it. So I don't know, we get our second accident of the day. The one we never talk about, he ended up getting into a pretty big accident. Good news is he was fine. Obviously, we don't want bad things to happen to people like that even. But he ends up taking out Sergio Perez and George Russell.
Oh, okay. I don't even know who took out who. I know that he was the first one to crash. Sergio got hit by Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
But what happened with George Russell?
George got rear-ended by he who shall not he, what do we say?
He who shall not be named.
Yeah, he like just went straight into the back of George.
Oh Jesus. Okay, yeah, I didn't see that. All I saw was George like take his, like, I don't know what that thing is, but you know that thing. Sorry, if you're listening to this on Spotify or something, we've been making hand gestures for things. I'm so sorry, but like the little like thing that they take out of the car when they're getting out of the car. That's all I saw was like, it's like U-shaped. You know what I'm talking about?
Like, I think it's to protect their like heads from like knocking around.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there we go. Like, that thing.
Surprised he didn't run over to he who shall not be named and like hit him with them. Why are you trying to kill me? You know, because he did that at Imola, you know?
He did do that at Imola to Valtteri. But yeah, it was so insane because it just happened so quickly, and I didn't see anything, and I just thought it was my favorite part of the whole thing was seeing Sergio Perez just like chilling,
just standing, just waiting for the bus.
Just standing there waiting for anyone to come get him. Like they were cutting back and forth between all the videos so you could see the chaos, and then they cut to like the actual track and there's Sergio Perez just still standing, still waiting for someone to help him and pick him up. Didn't happen for a while, to be honest. It felt like it took a while to go get him.
Yeah.
Because of that though, there was another red flag. So I don't know, it was a mess.
Yeah.
And after this though, we saw something interesting. Hey, Courtney, some like weird negotiating that was going on.
I was so confused with the whole thing. I was dying. Like, what are they trying to figure out here? So going back into the second restart, the FIA offers Red Bull, we propose to put Max in P2, and Red Bull's like, oh my God, yeah, for sure. The FIA said, and they're like, we just want to confirm Ocon's in P1. Like, we're not behind Lewis. And they're like, please wait, please stand by. And they come back and they're like, no, you're behind Hamilton. And I'm just like, what is the offer here? Like, what was the point of that?
No, 100%. And what's the point of the negotiating? Like, I know they don't want it to go to the stewards because the stewards will come down and be harsher, but I just didn't know this was a thing that was allowed, that you could be like negotiating with the FIA to come up with a plan that works for everyone. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, Christian Horner in his interview was saying like, I'm not used to that ever being an option. Like them negotiating something with us. What?
Yeah.
And I like with this, when they were stopped, they were going over this.
Yeah, it was happening when they were stopped in the pit lane waiting, and it was just all happening on radio back and forth but it was just bizarre. Like I've never seen that.
They had to, they were offering this to Red Bull because Max pushed Lewis off on that turn. Is that even why this came up? Yeah.
I think that was my understanding.
Right? I don't know.
Yeah, that's where I came at it too. I mean, ultimately Red Bull accepted the offer.
I know. And then Esteban Ocon is leading the Grand Prix.
For the second restart.
Which again, I was fine with. I was like, you know what? You win it. Like,
Yeah.
This is your chance.
Wilder things have happened. Like, you can do this.
Yeah.
And at the start, unfortunately, at the second restart, sorry, I should clarify because there's been a million at this point. Max gets a really good start, and Lewis, as much as he tries to position his car, I think was paying a little bit more attention to where Esteban was versus where Max was. So Max pretty much swung around the outside, the outside. I think on the outside, was open. And he ends up back in the lead in like 2 seconds with Esteban in second and then Lewis behind him. And again, we're thinking, all right, now they're just going to fight it out. And no, that's not what happened at all. So, Caitlin, what happened to our boy Yuki?
Yeah, okay. Another thing that like I didn't even see because we're all concentrating on what's happening with the top three. But Yuki pretty much causes another yellow flag. He causes another safety car because he comes into contact with Sebastian Vettel. And there's quite a bit of debris left on the track from that. So Yuki can actually he can go into the pits and he changes out the full front wing after this collision. But Sebastian Vettel, quite a few laps later, we see him just in the garage and he has to DNF because there's too much damage to continue with his car. So Yuki's given a penalty point to his name because of this incident. But yeah, we have yet another virtual safety car.
I think what killed me with that one though is that we saw the damage from Sebastian Vettel's vehicle and how much was like coming off of it, because then he got into a bit of a tussle with Kimi.
Yeah.
So more of the car was like shedding away, and they didn't call anything for long enough. Like, they didn't come out to get any of the debris. So there was so much debris on the track where there's all these blind corners. Alonso's hopping on the radio being like, we need to clear the track. Like, a flag needs to be, what was it? He said a red flag needs to be called now because it's so dangerous. We're driving so fast. And you can actually see, like, between Max and Lewis, how close it is to the driving line, like where the debris from Sebastian Vettel's car is. So I don't know why it took him so long to like actually call a virtual safety car at first and then finally call the safety cars to go out and get everything. But I was like, why are you taking so long? Like, there have been so many accidents today.
And that poor guy who had to run out and collect like the bigger pieces of debris, he had such a front lit, like he was leaning so forward running back. I saw him trip over his feet and I was like, you need to move. Poor guy, probably the most stressful like 45 seconds of his life.
Yeah, especially because, you know,
See the one that we saw like jumping into the little window,
the yellow
in the fence?
box. Yeah.
God,
I didn't see this. When the hell did this happen?
you just see a guy like running off track, like going into a little cutout in the fence, like they would have in an elementary school. Just like jump right through.
Yeah, and he like jumped right into it. I was impressed with that.
Yeah.
Oh,
He really wanted to get off track.
Yeah, because even though the drivers are driving 40% less fast,
It's still too fast. Yeah.
It's still, you get hit, it's over. Like, there's no way around it. I don't know. Caitlin, what was going on at the front with Max and Lewis?
Pretty much, yeah. What else we have yet to talk about for the rest of this race, for the most part, is a Max versus Lewis show. They're way out in front. It's Esteban in third. But there's quite a few situations going on between these two, right? Like, we have Max is in front of Lewis, and we know Lewis is going to try and get around. I'm really thinking Lewis has the faster car. Like, he has faster times every lap than Max. And he gets up to him at quite a few points. I can't remember at what point Lewis goes on the radio and says, like, this guy is fucking crazy, man. And he says it about Max, and I'm like, I agree personally, but some people would not be happy to hear that. They did touch at one point in one of the turns.
Yeah, they did.
They had a bump. And then we know right below that there was a much bigger bump. Okay, and let's just talk about this for a solid length of time, because this is when Lewis went into the back of Max.
Yep.
What were your guys' thoughts? What happened? What led to this?
So I know that seemingly from all like the post-race stuff, just no one knew what was happening. And I think to me, it was clear that Max was slowing down, but I don't think he had positioned his car very obviously that he was letting Lewis pass. So I think that was confusing. I also think that Lewis legitimately had no idea that Max had been given the command to let him pass. So I don't think it was like Max's position in the car was weird, whatever, but I actually don't think it was any of their faults. I do think it's like the FIA, the stewards' fault.
Yeah.
And I thought that right away, but I was just more like, how the fuck are they going to race now? Like, are they both out? Was my concern. What did you think, Courtney?
I agree. I think it was just miscommunication on all aspects. I also think it was in a bad part of the track because it was right before a corner. So it kind of like if you didn't have the audio on, what it looked like is Max was slowing down to make the corner, like get the fast end coming out, and just kind of stopped mid-track. So I think Lewis had no idea what was going on and had kind of a fear in the back of his mind. I don't want to get too close to Max's side going into this turn because that could end up putting both of them out if Max turns into him. I think, Max probably could have positioned his car a little bit differently. It's kind of like, they were like, oh, you have to slow down. And he was like, stopped in the middle of the track. So then Lewis was like, what? And this track is pretty narrow. I heard in the pre-race kind of debrief that it's similar to Monaco. Like it's a narrow track. So it would even be hard for Lewis to get around him in that corner to begin with. I think, miscommunication on the FIA, and even I could even say like Lewis's team for not giving him a heads up that Max was told, but I don't think anyone is truly to blame. I think Max could have maybe moved over a little bit, but just a messy situation. Caitlin, what did you think?
Like very messy. Definitely good. I'm like, why was he giving the spot back in the first place? He was told to give the spot back.
Yeah.
Why? Why was he told to give that spot back? Because he gained an advantage going off track.
I think that's why. Like that seemed to be what they were cracking down pretty consistently on today.
But then what's crazy is like later on, let's say Max gives it back. Max ended up getting a 5-second penalty on top of that for doing exactly that.
Yeah.
It's just so weird. Like I fully agree. I think like Red Bull was told by FIA to give the spot back.
Yeah.
I don't think Mercedes was either like FIA told Mercedes and they didn't have time for the engineers to tell Lewis that, or FIA didn't tell Mercedes in time.
Which seems to be the issue. So after the accident and everyone being like, what the fuck is going on? We do hear some radio conversation between, I don't know who it was at Mercedes, but Mercedes and the FIA when, again, they were like, are we being allowed to pass Max? Like, what's going on? And he's like, well, I told you before. And he's like, no, like when you told me, I was telling the race engineer and then the accident happened. So like Matt, and that way that Lewis didn't hear. But then also Lewis is saying that Max like brake checked me. And I'm like, can you brake check anyone during races like that? I don't know. When I think about brake checking, I think about like me driving on like Deerfoot or something on a highway. Like I don't think about a Formula One race. So
Yeah.
I agree. Like I just think it was just a giant mess of really shitty communication.
Yeah, so it's like Lewis actually ended up losing a bit of his front wing. It was damaged. I bet you Max's back, they were saying that was damaged from the incident. And it was so odd because like there's a touch and then they kind of like go apart and Max just zooms right off. And if I was Lewis, I would be like, what was the point of all this?
Yeah.
That's actually a good point, because if hypothetically, if Lewis was supposed to get the position, but then you have a collision and then Max is gone, like you didn't end up getting the position anyways. So
It's so
Lewis,
odd.
for like a split second on the screen, Lewis was in first, and within like maybe a millisecond, Max went back. So in Max's head, he might have been like, well, I tried.
I gave it back.
He didn't go for it. So let's rip.
I have no idea.
Interesting.
So,
I know. I would just want to like be a fly in the wall of like all these conversations.
Oh yes, and this is Shankar. Are you going to look at this? This is going to be under investigation after the race. They're talking to Hamilton.
I'm looking up. So the FIA hasn't posted anything. There's a journalist that I really love, Chris Medland. He's a freelance writer, but he's very on top of what's being shared. As of right now, as of this recording, there still hasn't been anything from the stewards tied to Lewis and Max's little, not even little, just like giant collision. But there has been no further action called for Charles and Sergio Perez's little accident that caused the second red flag. So getting some updates live, but still nothing on this big incident.
I think Charles and Sergio, it's just a racing incident. Like I said, that track is so narrow that like I'm surprised there was only 2 like big incidents. So
I agree.
Yeah, crazy.
So that was the first time Max tried to give the spot back to Lewis, right?
Yeah.
And then later on, he does it again.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
Did you guys see this? It was so strange when it happened the second time. Because to me,
because
like I just didn't understand what was happening, because it didn't look like Max was trying. It looked like Lewis just got past it. It was like, no,
like better driving.
It seemed like Max was maybe thinking like, oh, we're going to get a penalty anyway, so I'm going to give up the spot so that he doesn't, like, we don't get the penalty. Like, I don't know what was going on, but he just like breezed by him like it was nothing.
Yeah,
it was so odd. That was lap 43. And Red Bull went on radio to Max to say like, oh, we didn't need to do that. And it's just like, what is happening?
Yeah, this, like, so many question marks in this like whole 2 hours and like 40-minute race.
Yeah, no, it was ridiculous.
It was not key today for anyone.
No, there was nothing was working, it seemed like.
Yeah.
So Lewis gets ahead, and like we alluded to before, Max, after giving the spot back, gets a 5-second time penalty on top of that.
Yeah. And again,
what?
So was he given the 5-second time penalty for earlier? Like,
so they said it was for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. So I took that as before the first time he even slowed down to let Lewis by.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what you think it was, Courtney?
Yeah, I think, I forget. I want to say it might have been with after the first safety car, Max like fully just drives, like exceeds track limits to get in front of Lewis. And I think that's when the FIA, that's what they were referring to. And they're like, no, you fully went off the track to gain a penalty, to gain a spot. I think that's where the 5 seconds comes into play. But
that's
like
also where it comes in, like he has to get the spot back, right?
Yeah, like I feel like the FIA was just so lost in this entire race that they were like, wait, what do we have to look at now? Wait, what happened? And then someone else crashes and they're like, huh?
Yeah, so I have no idea, because I think, so we know that first thing that you're talking about, yes, Max like cut that corner, and I was like, that has to be something, like there has to be some sort of penalty. So hypothetically 5-second penalty there, but then like Caitlin, that you're saying is right too, because like there was, I think, one more start where it looked like Max went a little bit too wide and pushed Lewis off a little bit too much, like the Esteban, Lewis, Max going in 3 wide, but it's also like they're going 3 wide into a narrow turn
after a race start, which they've been trying to just allow as like racing incidents.
Yeah. So I don't know.
So like I guess the big question is it the same event we're talking about that caused the 5-second penalty and for Max to get back in the spot, or is that 2 different circumstances that I just can't remember what the other one was? Because I personally think that like if it's for the same incident, he did not need to have both.
I agree. We need Michael Massey in on this.
Yes, we'll call him right up.
Send him an email. Michael, I sent you an email.
Michael, yes. So Courtney on our WhatsApp chat, she's like, is Toto busy writing his email right now? And just lost it at that.
I mean, I love it. I love Toto Wolff so much.
Oh, yeah, we actually got a very good meme of him. So after the whole Lewis going into the back of Max, they did a slow-mo video of how mad Toto was behind his computer. He like takes off his headset and like throws it down, and he's just yelling, and you're like, whoa.
And
Yeah.
it's also like 15-second slow-mo,
Yeah.
like
Oh, he was mad. Yeah.
No, it was fully like, because you know how they the drivers will apologize for their language and stuff, and Formula One will blur things out and whatever. But like Toto was saying fuck. Like I could read the lips of him slow motion for 15 seconds as he's so not sure what happened there. Probably not kid friendly, but as you can see, the confusion that we have though around the penalties and stuff like that, I'm hoping will be cleared up by this evening. So I mean, hopefully we'll make sure it's on our stories or in our post wrap Instagram post or something somewhere. It'll be somewhere.
But like, it's not just us being confused because we're still relatively new-ish. Like Christian Horner and Toto in their interviews were both very confused with how everything went down.
Yeah.
I know, like after the 5-second penalty was announced, Max was saying he said it wasn't even worth fighting for the race anymore because he couldn't make up a 5-second penalty. And then he went on to say like some of the spiciest stuff I've ever heard him say. He was talking about Mercedes. He's like, they don't even deserve any words coming out of my mouth. And I was like,
yeah. He also like to quickly wrap, Bottas and Esteban were fighting for third. And Bottas passed Ocon literally at the checkered flag. So come podium, once the champagne gets sprayed, Max takes his bottle and leaves.
Really? I did not watch that.
He was just like, yeah, no.
Because normally, even after the race, you know how they pull up to those like 1, 2, 3, regardless of what happens, there's normally some sort of like acknowledgement between Max and Lewis. Yeah, there was nothing this time, and I was like, oh, he's fucking fast. But Max like made sure to give like Valtteri a little fist bump, and I was like, oh, this is not good. This is not good.
They are not friends for the rest of this season.
But like I said, I think we've come to the conclusion that it's like, obviously their teams were trying to do what they could to win, but at the end of the day, this seems like just a giant screw up of the FIA, the stewards, Michael Massey, and everyone just not knowing what the hell was going on, and then frankly causing way too much of a headache for the other drivers. It just wasn't clear what was happening. I to end it, Max came. Actually, no, Lewis came in first, didn't he? Yeah.
Lewis passed his like lap.
Bottas.
Yeah.
Hamilton passed at lap 43.
There we go.
When Max didn't understand that he didn't need to give the spot back, but he gave it back.
So insane. So yeah, the top 10 or the final standings was Lewis in first, Max in second, Valtteri a 10th by a 10th of a second over Esteban Ocon, like Courtney mentioned. Danny Rick showing up a little bit here in 5th, in 6th, Pierre Gasly. We didn't cover Carlos Sainz too much, but he had a very good drive considering he started in P15. So he's in 7th. Charles in 8th, again, together, always together.
Yeah.
Gio in 9th, doing well for himself. Norris in 10th, Lance Stroll in 11th, Nicholas Latifi. Yuki Tsunoda, I was so sad about because I think that looking at how he was doing throughout the race, this would have been one where he could have finished in the points, but just that accident with Sebastian Vettel, I don't think he really had the easiest time coming back from that. So Yuki, followed by Alonso, and then Kimi. And we had 4 DNFs. So Sebastian Vettel, like we mentioned, 5, I should say 5. George Russell, who clearly Caitlin and I didn't see, but Courtney saw what happened to him. Sergio Perez, who we roasted for just like standing there waiting to be picked up like a kid waiting for the bus, and then both Haas's. So Caitlin, you made a note here about the Ferrari boys that Carlos.
Yeah, we didn't see too much of them in the race.
No.
But Carlos was in his interview. He talked about how close him and Charles were. They went back and forth. And then Charles is actually now ahead of Lando in the Drivers' World Championship.
Woo!
So up to 5th.
Sorry, Courtney. Sorry, the devastation on Courtney's face.
There's still, he can improve next race, right? He can still get it. But now Ferrari is like quite a bit ahead of McLaren. They've been for a while. It's not closing anytime soon. Leclerc was not happy in his interview though. He was like, because he was one of the drivers that swapped in the first whole incident with the safety car to red flag. And he's like, it just threw everything off. Yeah, he was not happy. Lando was not happy with that, as we kind of said earlier. So
like, what can you do though? Truly, there's like nothing you can do. Lewis somehow with a damaged front wing gets fastest lap. Okay, I have some questions for y'all. Leaving Max and Lewis tied going into Abu Dhabi, which just gives me anxiety. We'll probably be messaging each other in WhatsApp, freaking out. Caitlin, you're going to be half alive because you'll be like 2 a.m. Hawaii time watching.
I think it's the 3 a.m. restart. Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. Max gets driver of the day. So I have two things to ask you guys. One, when it comes to Lewis getting fastest lap, we know that Max was saying towards the end that his tires became an issue. So Max swapped onto mediums. Mediums last, what, Riley says 30 laps versus Lewis being on the hards. I don't know if they push each other so much that, you know, plus the accident, if Max just got the wind out of his sails. But to me, it looked like Max kind of gave up after the accident and like letting him pass when his team was like, oh, you didn't have to do that. Like he didn't even get back on to, like, he didn't turn it back on, you know what I mean?
I totally agree. And I think it goes back to what we said earlier. And Max was like there's, what's the point of racing anymore? Like, oh, poor guy. I mean, I feel bad for Max in a sense of like he's fighting for his first world championship. The second last race, he gets completely screwed over.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think he just, and like he even mentioned in post-race interviews, he said, this isn't Formula One. Like, this isn't what I'm here for. This isn't even racing anymore.
And he's not wrong. Like, this was a total shit show. So, Caitlin, what do you think? Do you think he kind of like gave up? Because like Lewis's car was damaged and he would have not been as aerodynamic. So I feel like at least Max could have knocked out a fastest lap. And that didn't happen.
I agree. I think he did kind of like throw in the towel early. He said like after that 5-second penalty, no use in even racing anymore. I think he was pissed after qualifying. Like he was doing so well in qualifying and then lost it in the last turn. It was just not a good weekend for him. And I do think the back of his car probably had damage after that crash with Hamilton too. So maybe he couldn't have gotten fastest after all.
Yeah, I wonder what part of the car kind of affects your aerodynamics more, the front or the back?
That's a good
like
question.
If the front wing has damage, what aspect does that kind of affect? Or if the back has damage, you know?
Yeah, I have no idea. So your guess is as good as mine. But yeah, I think that something happened there, whether it's like wind in sails or not, something happened. Max gets driver of the day, which is my second thing where I'm like, I feel like Esteban Ocon should have gotten driver of the day. He held off Valtteri for quite literally right up until the checkered flag. Why is no one impressed with that? I'm sorry. Max and Lewis were like just being like crazy up out in front, but like Esteban did work and kept Valtteri at bay for so long.
That's such a good point. That is such a good point. I feel like though a lot of fans of Lewis and Max now are just voting for their favorite to get ahead in points. Because you get an extra point if you're driver of the day, no?
Do you?
Do you?
Maybe it's fastest lap. You get an extra point somewhere, yeah. Well,
but they can boost their like social ratings if they get higher driver of the day, probably. So
I feel like a lot of people also are voting for Max because they just want to see a new world champion. They're like, okay, Lewis, let's let someone else win here.
Although like the fact that they've been able to bring this battle all the way to the last race of the season, everyone should be thrilled with that, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I just wanted to give an update on Theo Pocher, who is the person that hit Enzo Fittipaldi. He posted and he wants to let everyone know that he's completely fine. But that, you know, the biggest focus needs to be on Enzo, who is injured. So at least we know a little bit more of what's going on there. But
yeah, we hope everything's going to be okay.
yeah,
it's so scary. Like, this
Yeah.
is such a dangerous sport.
oh,
Well, like this track, you see it is so tight, right? I'm like, does it need to be this tight?
You know, and so many blind corners.
No room for error.
no. Some of the post-race stuff that I saw was actually Lewis Hamilton just flat out saying that Max's driving is over the limit. And he wasn't the only one. There was like a few of the commentators also saying that, you know, for the, what did they say? It was like the driving craft, like Max was over the line a lot of the time. But I'm like, I don't know. Is it like weird British bias? I know that's a thing that people always say. But
like Felipe Massa was the commentator for F1 TV post,
Yeah.
and he was saying exactly that, and he's not British.
so I don't know. I don't know what that means, but clearly there's things are going to be said. Also from the Twitter world, I'm going to quote this directly from Formula Racers at Formula Racers. And this is from Autosport. Christian Horner was heard shouting, "I hope both sides of your pillow are warm," across the paddock to Toto Wolff.
What?
Good one.
I love that. I think that's a great thing to say. You know, like it's like similar to being like, "I hope you step on Legos" or something. But
It's like, I hope you step on a sea urchin. That's the best insult.
No, you can speak from experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, ladies,
Wild.
going into Abu Dhabi, where this has been the most unpredictable season in the world, what do you foresee happening?
So you guys know that if they both DNF, Max wins because he has more race wins.
Things for people to know.
Interesting.
So can we add some conspiracy into this? Also, okay, I did see a conspiracy theory a while ago, and it was talking about Mick Schumacher. And they're like, the last race of the season, or even the Saudi Arabia one, could have counted, but it's like he crashes into Lewis to prevent him from breaking his dad's record. And then Mick's the one that has the first crash, and Max comes out at the restart, and I was like, no. But I don't know. I think conspiracies galore.
I think next race,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna have any nails left. I'm gonna be like on the edge of my seat. Once again, speaking from personal preference, I would love to see one more, just an itty bitty podium for Lando. A P2, maybe a P1. But yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts? Who do you think's gonna win the world championship?
I feel like I can't call it, but my concern is just that turn one. Like
Lap one, turn one.
Yeah. And we've talked about it all season, but Lewis's qualifying has not been great. And we know
Well, it's getting better.
it has gotten better. That's true. There's also more pace in the car. But like, I just want them to make it through turn one, because I think if both of them DNF, it's just a loss for all of us.
Yeah.
If they take each other out, then it's like, like, why are we watching?
Well, and that's what they're both going, well, more so Lewis is going to have to keep in mind, right? Because for Max, that works in his favor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. He's gonna have to pull out of those corners, which is not great, man. I don't know. I'm still looking on Twitter, and I can't see any update as of right now regarding the stewards. I just imagine, holy shit, hold on 3 seconds ago.
Oh no.
10-second time penalty for Max Verstappen for causing a collision. Stays P2.
Really?
Okay. So they must have information we don't have.
Yeah, they need to spill it.
I'm like,
Huh,
hello?
okay.
Can someone tell us what's happening?
I thought you were going to say 10 seconds to Lewis.
Same.
Yeah, there's nothing else. I'm looking at a few other journalists and stuff, but everyone's just posting the 10 seconds. So I don't think we'll know until the FIA actually posts like the documentation or whatever that they normally do.
Because people were trying to make the argument too that like when Max had slowed down to let him pass the first time, he also had like a last minute like a little bit of a turn, and he wasn't like, he was staying in the middle of the track, and it would have been weird for Lewis to try and like figure out where to go. So I wonder if that's actually like they found some information that Max did do a
Like
swivel when he shouldn't have been. Yeah.
Yikes. Oh, and sorry, on top of the 10-second time penalty, he also gets 2 penalty points added to, is it his license? Like,
yeah, they have the max 12 a season.
Yeah. So checking a few other journalists to be like, does anyone know why? Like,
see,
what
that's
exactly,
I feel,
please.
There's going to be a lot of complaints from Red Bull fans that it's unfairly like one-sided right now.
Yeah, and I honestly think that's fair, because now we're still under the confusion piece of like not understanding where the 5-second penalty was versus the having to swap positions plus the 10-second one. So if they're as confused as we are, then you're looking at like he had to swap positions and got a 15-second time penalty at the end of it, which like really wish Valtteri had caught Esteban Ocon faster, because Valtteri could have easily been in second if he had been able to keep the gap. Again, why Esteban Ocon should have been driver of the day, just saying. Yeah, I'm not seeing any other updates, but like I said, we'll put it somewhere on our socials, maybe on TikTok, I don't know, but that's I just want to know what information they have to make a decision like that we don't have.
Yeah, we really need an insider on the ground.
If anyone works for the FIA,
so let us know.
Yeah, and listens to the podcast and would like to slip us some proprietary information, we would not say.
We will accept.
No. Okay, here we go. So stewards explain, this is from, again, Chris Medland, a great journalist, also updates Twitter every second, so this is great. So stewards explain that the key to the penalty is that driver of car 33 then braked suddenly and significantly, resulting in a 2.4 G deceleration. Okay. So the 10
so they can measure that. They would have data to show that, versus like Christian in his interview is like it wasn't an abnormal braking. Like I guess if the data says otherwise, Christian.
Yeah, and then in total, Max now has 7 penalty points. Obviously, that doesn't matter. We're going into the last race. Like something wild would have to happen for that to change. But yeah, I guess we know now that the deceleration 2.4 Gs is significant. So we have an answer. Probably more drama. So if you're watching Formula One Twitter, they're probably going to have a meltdown tonight.
Yeah.
Oh,
we'll keep an eye out.
I have the documentation. This is like just dragging on for forever. But okay. So the stewards heard from Max, heard from Lewis, and the team representatives, they reviewed video and the telemetry evidence, don't know what that means, and then determined that he was at fault. At turn 21, I'm reading this verbatim, by the way, but at turn 21, the driver of car 33, again, Max, was given instruction to give a position to car 44 and was told by the team to do so strategically. Car 33 slowed down significantly at turn 26. However, it was obvious that neither driver wanted to take the lead prior to the DRS detection line 3. Okay. So the DRS situation also played a hand in this. The driver of car 33, Max, stated he was wondering why car 44, Lewis, had not overtaken, and the driver of car 44 stated that not having been aware at that stage that car 33 was giving position back, was unaware of the reason why Max was slowing down. In deciding to penalize the driver of car 33, the key point for the stewards was that the driver of car 33 then suddenly braked. They say 69 bar. I don't know what that means. And significantly resulting in 2.4 deceleration. whilst accepting that car, Lewis could have overtaken Max when the car had first slowed down. We understand why he and Max did not wish to be the first to cross the DRS line. However, the sudden braking of Max's car was determined by the stewards to be erratic, and hence the predominant cause of collision, and hence the standard penalty of 10 seconds for this type of incident is imposed. And then, of course, something about how to appeal. So competitors are reminded they have the right to appeal certain decisions of the stewards in accordance to Article 15 of the FIA International Sporting Code and Chapter 4 of the FIA Judicial Disciplinary Rules when applicable to time limits. So there we go. We have an answer, sort of.
So is Lewis still under investigation?
No, this is it.
Okay. Well, okay. Changes nothing.
Yep, changes nothing except, Christian Horner being mad, probably.
Oh, yeah, watch his socials, you guys. Let's see what happens.
We're gonna see an appeal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all I have.
In summary, this race was very confusing for everyone. That's what we'll remember it for, being like a what happened?
You think they'll make
Saudi 2021? What?
Yeah, exactly. You think they'll make any changes though? Because it just felt like it wasn't safe today either. Like overall, just not safe in how things were handled.
And a lot of drivers came out saying that like they don't feel safe racing on this track.
So something's got to be sorted.
Let's hope.
But yeah, like to echo what Caitlin said, this was confusing. It was a mess. Hopefully something changes.
But we get another prime total meme out of this, which I'm trying to put on TikTok, you guys. I'm trying.
Oh, okay. So sorry for more time. So obviously Max getting second and the time penalty, nothing changes there because he was 16 seconds ahead of Valtteri. So again, if Valtteri had just like gotten around Esteban a little bit faster, things could have maybe changed a little bit, but that's all. Courtney, how does your first episode, how does it feel?
It feels so nice to be with you guys. Thanks for letting me on. It was a lot of fun. It's so nice to have like other people to talk about it with. Like I have a little F1 group chat with some of my friends, but they're just not into it, And I've converted my mom. Now I have the TV set to record, to like automatically switch to races when it's on. But my mom doesn't get it, so I can't talk strategy with her. So it's so lovely to be able to do that here.
Yeah, and for all the listeners, Courtney's going to be joining us for the last race of the season, and then we're going to probably wrap the year with something fun, just our favorite moments.
But let's not glance over the last race, right? We're going to have some big things come out of that one.
Caitlin's also right, because we're going to know after this wild 2021 season who actually is going to come out on top and who's going to have a very public meltdown, because my God, I just don't know. It's good though. I feel like them going in dead even is a good thing, minus the safety of turn one. But I think it just kind of like levels the playing field. Whoever drives the best, has the best team strategy, is going to be on top, hopefully.
Yeah.
In Abu Dhabi.
I wonder what team the circuit favors. I'll have to look into that. We'll see.
Yeah, that'll be part of our homework for next week.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, well, friends, thank you so much. And follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Are we on anything else, Caitlin?
Oh, we have the YouTube.
Right. You can also watch our hand gestures on YouTube. And I also think that hopefully I'll have time this week. Nicole's blog post on what it was like going to the Mexican Grand Prix will be up on our site. So
yes, and our site, by the way, you guys, getcheckered.com. We officially have that domain now.
Yeah, finally. It took us 60 days, but we have the domain. So you can go check that out. Just, I don't know, see what we're doing. Who knows? But other than that, we'll you'll hear from us in the next one. After the next one, I still haven't got a good.
And in the meantime, just watch out for all the socials.
Yeah.
We'll come up with stuff. And as always, stay checkered.
Bye, everyone.